Hey there, welcome to this video. My name is Scott Schultz and I'm with Past Masters. I'm an instructor. Specifically in this video, what we're going to be talking about is all things related to the basics of agency and agency relationships. And what we're doing here, the purpose of this is to help you get a better understanding of this for your exam. So when you go to take your state exam, and you're working towards getting your real estate license, you understand and know what these terms mean. You have to for your exam. And there's a lot of synonyms in this area. So you need to know them, you need to understand them, and that's what this video is for. So if you like it, please give it a thumbs up. If you have any questions when you're watching it, post a comment and I'll answer back. Make sure to subscribe because we're posting videos like this as often as we can to help those of you studying for your exam. So let's take a look. We're talking about agency here and a number of different things surrounding this agency relationship. So first, we're going to talk about this definition of what's called brokerage. So brokerage is defined as the bringing of parties together for the purchase, rent, or exchange of real estate in return for a fee, and that's the commission, right? In performing this service, agency relationships are usually created between the brokers and the parties they represent. So think about that just for a second. You know, generally you're studying here to get your salesperson's license and you are going to be representing your broker, right? Your broker, if you make a sale, your broker is the one that pays you. So think of the broker as the business. Now the business is actually the agent in this scenario, because if you're a seller, you don't hire a particular individual to represent you, you hire a brokerage. So remember, you as a salesperson, you work underneath the brokerage, the broker, and when you make a sale, the broker gets paid by the seller usually, right? And that commission then is paid by the broker to you. Okay, so you are a representative of the broker. And it's the broker that in this we're talking about this agency relationship. It's the broker that's representing the seller, usually. So let's take a look at the definition of agency. The relationship between a principal/client, usually a seller, and an agent broker, wherein the agent is authorized to represent the principal in certain transactions. Okay, so that's exactly what I was talking about. That's what brokerage is, right? So when we talk about this agency or agency relationship, we have an individual, usually a seller. Now the seller, as we see in this statement here, the seller is referred to on the exam and as under legal terms as the principal, also known as the client. So we've got three different terms, well really four different terms, because not only could it be a seller that's hiring a broker, it could also be a buyer, right? If I'm out there looking for a house and I want somebody to represent my interest, I myself could hire a broker. So the broker could be an agent of the seller or of the buyer. So, okay, so the broker we know is the agent in this agency relationship. And they're representing who? Well, four different terms. It could be the buyer, it could be the seller, and that's who it usually is. And the buyer or seller is referred to as either the principal or the client. Could this get any more confusing? Well, hopefully not. Hopefully we're clarifying these things here. But you need to know these terms. Buyer, seller, principal, client. All means the same thing. And it's the broker who is legally authorized to represent them, to work on their behalf legally. Right? It's the broker, and the broker is referred to as an agency. It's an agency relationship. Okay, so going further on, we mentioned the principal, okay, also known as what? The client, is the seller or buyer who secures the agent/broker to represent them. Okay, so that should be very clear after what we just talked about. The next term we have related to this, the agent, is the broker. The broker who represents the principal, or also known as what? Client, who is the seller or the buyer. Salespersons represent their broker, as I mentioned earlier. A broker is paid by the principal, so a home sells, the commission is paid to the broker. A salesperson is paid by their broker. So the broker, so we're talking about like a listing agreement, right? So you want to sell your house. You find a broker you want to represent you. You enter into a listing agreement. The listing agreement is a legal contract that specifies what that relationship is. Okay, so you're representing them, you're hiring them to represent you as the seller. And you're going to pay them, if they sell your house, a commission. And they, in turn, are going to share that commission with their representatives, the real estate salesperson who work for them. Okay, customer, great. So we got something else here. It just doesn't stop, does it? Doesn't your brain sometimes hurt? I know mine does. But it's going to feel all better when you're done watching this video, because everything's just going to be crystal clear. So we've got the customer. Okay, who is the customer? The customer is defined as the third party to a transaction, who may also be represented by an agent, broker, buyer's broker. A broker owes fiduciary duties to their principal/client and must act with honesty and fair business dealings when dealing with the customer, third party. Okay, let's break this down. So let's say that you're a broker representing a seller. Okay, so there's a seller and a buyer in this transaction, isn't there? So you represent the seller, and a buyer comes in and makes an offer. Who do you really represent? Well, you represent the seller. So you owe, by law, certain fiduciary duties to the seller. Are there any duties you owe to this third party, who's the buyer in this situation and is referred to as the customer? Yes, you do, in fact. You do, and this is sometimes a test question, okay? So you definitely owe fiduciary duties to the person who legally you represent. However, you are required by law to owe certain responsibilities to this third party, the customer, which in our scenario is the buyer. And it says right in that statement, this is one of them. Broker owes fiduciary duties to their principal client, of course, and must act with honesty and fair business dealings when dealing with the customer, the third party, in our scenario, the buyer. Okay, now could the buyer have their own broker? Yeah, they could. Buyer's broker, okay, and that buyer broker, their principal would be the buyer. All right, now we have this term dual agency. What does this mean? All right, well, so think about this. In my scenario, we had a buyer, we had a seller, and both of them could have their own brokers or agents, right, representing them in this transaction. But what if there was only one representing both parties, the buyer and the seller? Does that make sense? So think of this, you're a broker, and you're representing the buyer and you're representing the seller. So the buyer's saying, what do you think the best price I can get on this property is? And then the seller that you're representing at the same time saying, I want to get the most out of this sale that I possibly can. So how much do you think that is? Well, you're always working in the best interest of your principal, right? Whoever hired you. Can both of them hire you in one transaction? Maybe, depending upon the state that you're in. So this is referred to as dual agency. We see here. Can a broker represent two principals? Maybe. Depends on the state. Some states it's actually legal to do so, to do this. They must, however, even if it is legal and you do this, you as the broker have to get written, informed, prior consent from both parties, letting them know that you're representing both of them in the transaction. So it's 100% transparent. Let's see what else it says there. Is it a conflict of interest? Yes, I definitely believe it is. How can you work? You have two opposing entities here. One's trying to get the best deal, one's trying to sell for the most. How can you do your best for both at the same time? It is a conflict of interest, and that's why most states, dual agency is against the law. Okay, so that's a lot of stuff that we covered there. But let's take a look at an example of a similar question that you might see on your state exam. And this is really where we're putting our knowledge to the test here. So let's take a look at this question. A property owner who has entered into an agency relationship with an agent is referred to as a. So definition based. You have a lot of these on the test. So as I said, you've got to know this. Property owner, okay, who has entered into an agency relationship with an agent is referred to as a. Okay, so this is a seller, right? Property owner, they've hired an agent. Who's the agent? The broker. So they've hired the broker to represent them in an agency relationship. Okay, so the seller is also known as what? Let's take a look at A. The customer, No. Who is the customer? The third party. So if some buyer comes along and makes an offer, that's the third party. That's the customer. Vendor? No. That term does not apply anywhere here with these agency relationships. Fiduciary. Well, who's the fiduciary? It's not the property seller. It would be the broker, the agent. They act as a fiduciary on behalf of the principal. So that's not the correct answer. And by process of elimination, which sometimes you have to use if you don't know, this last answer has got to be it, and it is principal. So the property seller, correct answer, who hires a broker agent to work on their behalf to sell the property, is known as the principal / also known as what? Client. So let's look at the explanation here. An agent represents the principal or client in a transaction. The agent owes the principal fiduciary duties, as we mentioned. The customer is the party to the transaction not represented by the agent, and that would, in this situation, be a buyer. So could a buyer have their own broker? Sure, but it doesn't specify that in this question, and really doesn't matter as far as what the correct answer would be. But see, now here you see with that particular question why these definitions are so important. You've got to know. I know it's like learning a new language, the language of real estate. And I'm here to help you through this journey. So I'm so excited. This is so much fun. Make sure that you come back and check out any other videos we have and post something in the comments. You got a question, happy to help. Subscribe to the page, give us a thumbs up if you liked the video. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you around somewhere else on YouTube.